In 1991, Boys and the Hood showed us how young lives could be destroyed in seconds. What it didn't show was that time would be just as ruthless to the people who made it. Their stories today are shaped by loss, survival, and irreversible change. This is Boys and the Hood, then and now, Ice Cube as Doughboy. Ice Cube was born on June 15, 1969, in Los Angeles, California. He was just 22 years old when he portrayed Doughboy in Boys in the Hood, 1991, a role that turned him into the raw voice of a generation shaped by violence and neglect. Before the film, Ice Cube had already tasted fame with NWA, but that success came with internal conflict, industry exploitation, and public controversy. After Boys in the Hood, he transitioned into acting while navigating the pressure of being labeled too political and too dangerous for mainstream Hollywood. In the mid-1990s, Friday, 1995, marked a shift, using humor to process trauma, followed by broader acceptance through films like Barbershop, 2002, where his image softened without losing credibility. By 2026, at 57 years old, he remains alive and active, working selectively in film, music, and business, one of the rare figures who escaped the fate his most famous character could not. Cuba Gooding Jr. as Trey Styles. Born on January 2, 1968, in the Bronx, New York, Cuba. Gooding Jr. was 23 years old when he played Trey Styles in Boys in the Hood, 1991, the film's moral anchor, a young man raised with discipline, restraint, and the chance to choose a different path. The role opened doors quickly. His career peaked in the mid-1990s, culminating in an Academy Award win for Jerry Maguire, 1996, where he became one of Hollywood's most bankable young stars. But success proved fragile. In the 2000s, inconsistent roles and box office disappointments weakened his standing, and the industry's trust slowly eroded. The sharpest fall came in the late 2000s, when multiple women accused him of sexual misconduct. Though he denied wrongdoing and was never convicted, the allegations alone reshaped public perception and effectively stalled his career. By 2026, at 58 years old, Cuba Gooding Jr. remains alive, working sporadically in low-profile projects, a stark contrast to the hopeful future once embodied by Trey Styles. Lawrence Fishburne as Furious Styles. Lawrence Fishburne, born on July 30, 1961, in Augusta, Georgia, was 29 when he portrayed Furious Styles in Boys in the Hood, 1991, embodying calm authority and moral clarity in a world defined by chaos. Behind the composed image, Fishburne faced long personal and emotional struggles. Early success came with heavy expectations, and balancing prestige roles with meaningful storytelling was never easy. While his career surged with global fame in The Matrix, 1999, the pressure of sustaining relevance followed. As a producer, he encountered repeated challenges, creative compromises, financing obstacles, and projects that never reached the audience he envisioned. His divorce from actress Gina Torres brought emotional strain and a period of public silence, forcing him to recalibrate both his personal life and career priorities. The global success of The Matrix, 1999, restored his stature, yet the behind-the-scenes battles continued quietly. Now, in 2026, at 64 years old, Lawrence Fishburne remains alive and active, focusing on selective acting roles and producing projects. Nia Long as Brandy Long. Born on October 30, 1970, in Brooklyn, New York, Nia Long was 21 years old when she appeared as Brandy Long in Boys in the Hood, 1991. The grounded presence beside Trey, representing stability and emotional safety in a volatile world. The role quietly positioned her for stardom. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, her career flourished with films like Love Jones, 1997, and The Best Man, 1999, cementing her status as a defining face of Black Hollywood. Yet longevity came with strain. As roles for women her age narrowed, professional momentum slowed, bringing financial uncertainty common to actors aging out of studio favor. In 2022, her private life became public when a high-profile infidelity scandal involving her longtime partner sent shockwaves through the media, overshadowing her work and forcing a painful personal reset. By 2026, at 56 years old, Nia Long remains alive, working selectively in film and television, rebuilding stability after a period where personal loss eclipsed professional achievement. Regina King as Shalika. Born on January 15, 1971, in Los Angeles, California, Regina King was 20 years old when she appeared as Shalika in Boyz n the Hood, 1991, a small but telling role that placed her on the edge of a world defined by loyalty, danger, and survival. At the time, few could predict how far her career would rise. Her ascent was steady rather than explosive. Through the 1990s and early 2000s, she built credibility with films like Jerry Maguire, 1996, and Ray, 2004, while balancing marriage and motherhood. After her divorce in 2007, King quietly refocused on her craft, eventually reaching a new peak with Watchmen, 2019, and her directorial breakthrough, One Night in Miami, 2020. Then came the deepest rupture. In 2022, her son, Ian Alexander Jr., died by suicide at the age of 26, a loss that reshaped her life beyond public recognition. By 2026, at 55 years old, Regina King remains alive and active, working selectively while carrying a grief that no award or achievement can undo. Tyra Farrell as Brenda Baker. January 28, 1962, marked the birth of Tyra Farrell in Houston, Texas. She was 29 years old when she portrayed Brenda Baker in Boyz n the Hood, 1991, a struggling mother trapped between love for her sons and the quiet exhaustion of survival. Her performance carried emotional weight, even when the spotlight did not. In the early 1990s, Farrell appeared in notable films like White Men Can't Jump, 1992, but her momentum stalled soon after. She later revealed that an important storyline centered on black love between her character and Wesley Snipes was cut, a decision that deeply disappointed her and reflected a broader pattern of erasure. As Hollywood shifted, Farrell found herself increasingly sidelined, speaking openly about the dark side of beauty and the industry's reliance on racial stereotypes that limited meaningful roles. By 2026, at 64 years old, Tyra Farrell remains alive but largely absent from mainstream film, remembered for talent that outpaced the opportunities she was given. Angela Bassett as Reva Stiles. Born on August 16, 1958 in New York City, Angela Bassett was 33 years old when she appeared briefly as Reva Stiles in Boyz n the Hood, 1991, a role so small that many viewers overlooked it entirely. At the time, she was still fighting for visibility in an industry that rarely trusted black women with complexity or authority. Everything changed 2 years later. Her portrayal of Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, 1993, demanded physical and emotional endurance, earning her an Academy Award nomination and abruptly redefining her career. Success, however, came with pressure, typecasting, long gaps between meaningful roles, and the burden of having to repeatedly prove her worth. Films like Waiting to Exhale, 1995, kept her visible, but stability was hard-won rather than guaranteed. As of 2026, at 67 years old, Angela Bassett remains alive, respected, and active, choosing projects deliberately while standing as one of the few performers from the film whose stature grew stronger with time. Lloyd Avery II as Knucklehead Number 2. Lloyd Avery II was born on June 21, 1969, in Los Angeles. Only 22 when he appeared as Knucklehead Number 2 in Boyz n the Hood, 1991, embodying the raw, menacing presence of street violence rather than escaping it. In the early 1990s, Avery continued acting, appearing in films like Poetic Justice, 1993, and later Lockdown, 2000, often cast as hardened figures shaped by aggression and instability. But the line between performance and reality began to blur. Away from the screen, he struggled with anger and criminal behavior, eventually becoming involved in violent crime. Convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to prison, Avery's life unraveled completely behind bars. On September 4, 2005, at just 36 years old, Lloyd Avery II was murdered by a fellow inmate while incarcerated. His death stands as one of the most chilling examples of a life where the film did not exaggerate reality. It mirrored it. Morris Chestnut as Ricky Baker. Morris Chestnut was born on January 1, 1969 in Cerritos, California, only 22 when he brought Ricky Baker to life in Boyz in the Hood, 1991. Ricky was written as hope itself, a young man with talent, discipline, and a future, whose sudden death became one of the film's most devastating moments. In the years following the film, he faced the quiet struggle of avoiding typecasting, a challenge that kept his early career uneven. Breakthrough roles in Higher Learning, 1995, and later The Best Man, 1999, signaled stability rather than superstardom, forcing him to build longevity instead of chasing instant fame. Time treated him more gently than many of his peers. By 2026, at 57 years old, Morris Chestnut remains alive, active, and selective, continuing to work in film and television while standing as a rare contrast between a life cut short on screen and one steadily sustained in reality. John Singleton, director/cameo voice. Born on January 6, 1968, in Los Angeles, California, John Singleton was only 23 years old when he wrote and directed Boyz and the Hood, 1991, becoming the youngest and first black filmmaker ever nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director. His voiceover cameo was subtle, but his vision dominated the film, urgent, angry, and painfully honest. The success was historic, but the pressure was immense. Singleton spent the rest of his career fighting to retain creative control in an industry quick to celebrate his talent, but slow to trust his authority. Films like Poetic Justice, 1993, and Higher Learning, 1995, continued his exploration of race, violence, and identity, often facing criticism for being too confrontational. Later projects, including Baby Boy, 2001, reflected a more personal, conflicted perspective shaped by industry resistance and creative fatigue. In April 2019, Singleton suffered a major stroke and died on April 28, 2019, at the age of 51, due to complications following the stroke. Boyz and the Hood was never just a film about the streets. It was a mirror held up to time itself. Some escaped the violence, some were consumed by it, and others were slowly worn down by loss, pressure, and silence. Which story stayed with you the longest when you saw them then, and now?